to the Thought Leadership Keynote presentation. For most of us within the sector, journalism, covering ICT, he needs not be introduced again. He needs no introduction. But let me just say this without sounding modest, that the reason I'm saying what I'm saying now, it's not the comedian part of me or the compare part of me, but it's just the truth. And for us to be able to understand that we have someone that has the capacity to be able to do this. He was one of those proponents in those days. But as a lawyer, he has 3 different master's degree in law. That is enough validation. But I don't know if he has done much more than that now, but so many years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my very good friend, Basil Udotai, Managing Partner, Technology Advisor.
Thank you very much. First of all, I must say I'm very humbled to see this hall filled with not just anybody, these crop of human beings. People I haven't seen it. Some of you have not even seen in a very long time. There's one person in particular that I refused to answer my call for some time, and now I've caught him. I'm going to be very observant. If I see him trying to move out, sneak out of this hall, I'm going to put one person on him so that I'll get a chance to say to you what I've been meaning to say, which is, of course, for the good of the industry. I also want to thank Technology Times. It was very easy for me when Shina came up with the idea that perhaps we should make cybercrime the focus of his next output. It was difficult for me to say no because even though since the law was passed May 15th this year, I've had so many calls and invitations. A lot of them from my clients, some of whom are in this hall. In fact, I'm yet to meet all my clients' requirements because I go around doing what we call a compliance readiness program for them on the law. But I have not yet, I had not yet accepted any invitation to speak because what I have in mind to say about the law may either put me in trouble, further alienate me from the industry, or if it is viewed constructively, it might actually sort of bring us together again to say, let's see how we can chat with more instructive course to make sure that the law delivers on the goods. Now, it is, of course, something that is very gladdening to my heart to see that eventually Nigeria succeeded in putting together a legal framework that will protect and secure computer systems and networks, including the data that runs on them. Specifically protect critical information infrastructure, especially, and then creates a procedural framework for law enforcement to get involved, as well as interlinking Nigeria with the international community with very key, well-drafted provisions. I am going to just assume that everyone here has read the law. Okay? Because if we have not all read the law, this review may not meet our demands because I'm not going to go detail on each of the provisions. I also have 2 key messages which someone warned me before I arrived here that if you're going to speak in the presence of the press, make sure you write what you want to say. And make sure they have them, have it in their hands so that if they make a report, they are not misquoted and all of that. And when I told the person, no, this is not that kind of press, man. These are technology press guys and reporters. I said, no, I'm still Nigeria, please, you have to be very careful. And I said, okay, all right. what I'm going to do, I'm going to continuously emphasize on the key messages. That way, if everybody hears me differently, I can call for the recording and say this is what I said, or at least I can drag my brother here, my brother, to come and be a witness if nobody else will. I'm also glad to see on this side, a lot of these guys are ladies, are all my friends. Apart from Emmanuel, who is, in addition to being my friend, was my first employee at NIDA when I was a legal advisor. And Emmanuel's story is a very special one. I hope I don't embarrass him by telling it quickly too. Emmanuel is not one of those people you see his CV and hire him. Because like me, he maybe didn't pay too much attention in class in the first year. But he recovered quickly in second and third year and fourth year and still passed well. And in law school, you know, I once interviewed someone who made a first class in the university and made a pass at law school. And then I asked her, how did it happen? She started a litany of stories. I had to cut her in the middle of it. I said, okay, all right, that's fine. So Emmanuel came and interviewed with me because I really don't believe in grades. And my interview process is a bit different. I asked the principles of law, they impressed me. Then I asked him to do what I call writing sample. I still do till today. When he brought back his writing, it was so good I did not believe it. And I almost asked him to go sit down somewhere with a paper and write, let me see what I wrote it himself. But I did not want to embarrass him. So I took him on, and not only did Emmanuel impress me as a lawyer, Emmanuel has ended up being one of the most effective technology attorneys in this country. He has worked, you know, in internet governance. He's an authority in global internet governance. And I cannot be more impressed with his work. That's the only behind I'm going to kiss today. Even though I have stories for all these other guys that they are good. Now, because of time, let's just go into the story. Next slide, please. Yeah, is it possible to show the camera will need to light? Now, this is, again, let me remind everyone that this is a legal review. So what I did, because of the audience, was to try and dumb down the legal content so that, you know, all of us can relay the story. Because the value of this is for someone to be able to say it again to the next person and not lose the message. You know, Shino said it at the very beginning, and it is true, that for a very long time, this country has suffered. All the achievements that we have accomplished in ICT happened without an effective framework, legal framework, tackling undesirable conduct online, and there are many. Okay, so for a while, people were really worried what happened. You know, I was put up in those days, 2004 to 2006, everywhere, traveling around the world, talking about how Nigeria is, you know, eventually put an end to 419 because that's what everybody knew us for at the time. Now we are number 3 globally for cybercrime. I don't know if you know that. Now, we tried as much as possible, but it did not work out. I have theories for why they did not succeed. That's a question that I want us to have in mind. For those of us that have read the law, do you think that the law as drafted, has passed? Do you think it is effective to close this gap? Okay. Does it create the kind of a law enforcement framework that you're happy with? Okay. Do you think it's going to lead to effective and efficient enforcement of the act? For operators here, do you feel happy when you're reading it in terms of enforcement? Do you think compliance will be easy for you, or are you going to continue to have challenges even after this law has come to being? Again, for those of us who are not lawyers, the legal position is that once the president has assented to a bill that is passed by the 2 houses, the two chambers, it becomes law, and once it is law, it is enforceable immediately, right? The law is enforceable. So, as we are here today, any of us that is guilty, well, not guilty is not the right word, any of us that has violated any of the conduct that is in this act is susceptible to an arrest, to be investigated, prosecuted, and sentenced. And by the way, another thing you will notice in the act is that a whole lot of the sentences are high. I haven't seen anything that is less than $1 million in terms of punitive, and it's also not exclusive. It's usually joined in almost all the provisions, either penal sanctions by way of finance or actual jail term. Next slide, please. Now, this law has wiped the tears of this country in terms of, now that myth, someone said there was a juju, someone said all kinds of things that God, we're waxing very spiritual in Nigeria these days with my pastor here. It's just that he's a technology person, so he wouldn't have said such a thing. There are some pastors who even declare that, it was not meant to be. We're not supposed to have a cybercrime law, but we succeeded. It's the first ever statutory instrument in the country that criminalized online actions and prescribed punishments, creating also legal procedures for investigation and prosecution. The challenge was, before now, was that the Constitution required that for someone to be prosecuted or charged or convicted for any act in Nigeria, that act must be contained, must be prohibited in a written law and punishment prescribed. So this law has actually satisfied those constitutional requirements. There's an issue in international criminal law called the dual criminality doctrine. This doctrine limits a country from getting or giving cooperation in any subject matter that is not prohibited in its national law. What does that mean for cybercrime before now? That means Nigeria could only get limited cooperation from any other country in the world. Not only that, it actually, constituted a barrier against us asking and receiving cooperation from external sources. So this law has actually helped and beat that. For the first time, we now have dedicated provisions for critical infrastructure protection. What's a critical infrastructure? A critical infrastructure is any infrastructure in the technology field that is so intrinsically linked to the national economy, the well-being, and the lifeline of your country, such that if any attack, of course, that affects the functionality and availability and confidentiality of any of those infrastructure, it is going to have a debilitating effect, a debilitating impact on your national economy. I'm just paraphrasing it, that's what critical infrastructure is. So now, for the first time in Nigeria, anybody that damages critical infrastructure, even if it is physical, like the mask, or digitally using hacking tools or whatever to affect the functionality of it, whether it is, even if it's a major database, so long as the president, through special instrument, has designated either that sector or those infrastructure to constitute critical information infrastructure, it comes under protection. My brother, I know we are technology people here, we can. Now, the law has also institutionalized what is called a CERT. CERT is a computer emergency response team, which for the first time is going to handle incidents, computer-related incidents in the country. So if you have someone deface your website, someone steals your name on Facebook and picture, whatever is your incident, you now have a place that you can report to. The law has also mandated the creation of a national forensic lab, a lab that law enforcement can use to copy hard drives of computers, to copy hard drives of your phone for purpose of investigation. Who remembers when there were two critical murders in this country, or assassination. One was the former Attorney General Bola Ige, and then Sir or Mr. Williams in Lagos State. In those two cases, there were actually funds involved, but we did not have the capability at the time or the law to strengthen that capacity so that we can have the legal rights to those devices in the course of investigation. I'm sure if it was possible, we would have been able to piece some digits together and come up with a far better intelligence on what may have happened that day. Now, a critical component of this law is also that, and very beautifully too, that the Attorney General now has the mandate to issue regulations. It is always very useful when you have a broad-based law that is over an area that is developing in a fast pace, because you cannot intercept everything in the law. So the AG, working with industry, hopefully, can now say, okay, in terms of identity, what should we do? The government is trying to aggregate all identity databases now, but it doesn't stop there. How are we going to certify people they call identity verification service providers, or are they done already? Because someone must sit somewhere and ping those public databases and say, I have seen Sunday Polanyo's picture and data and biometrics in at least 6 out of the 10 public databases. So I am sure that this person you are dealing with is Mr. Sunday Polanyo. On a score, usually 10. If it comes under 5, say 4, then it's an alert. So one finger is here, one face is there, and so on and so forth. We know that someone is trying to mess up. We would have regulations reflecting all this and other key areas. Now we also have what I call the stakeholder community. For the first time, created by law, we now have the advisory council with individual institutions that will be created. Since some of them are even private representative organizations in the ICT industry. The beautiful thing is that with the regulation, the AG can add to this number. Okay? So it's a truly groundbreaking law with potential to greatly impact our jurisprudence and legal development, and our governance, as well as business and so on and so forth. All right. Next slide. So if we have all these beautiful stories to tell about this, but what are the challenges then? What's the issue? What's the problem? The very first problem which everyone that reads the law would see immediately is that there's not a single enforcement institution. And that's crazy. There is not a single enforcement institution. I have a slide that we're going to talk about this, but just keep this in mind. Have you ever witnessed in this country, I don't know about other countries, any crime in which an institution is not vested with the authority to investigate and prosecute? If you have, let me see your hands. One crime, one institution. That's the practice we have. If you look at our criminal justice system, you are going to be, unless you're a miracle worker, you're not going to find one criminal prosecution, one line of statute that is prosecuted by more than one entity. This is the first time. It's an aberration. Okay, not only is it an aberration, it's going to lead to very complex, enforcement challenges, which I don't know how we're going to meet it. Okay. There it is, the first major challenge. The other challenge is that with my compliance background reading this law, I was shaking my head. I didn't know why the major operators, people, what happened? Where were they when this law passed? I think some people were sleeping. I'll take cyber capital operators, for instance. Section 7 of the law now mandates that every cyber capital operator would register with CPN. With CPN. Wow. CPN. Professional Registration Council of Nigeria. And those days when my good friend Dr. Obi was the president of CPN, because I did not keep my views to myself, which my mother always told me, don't say everything you think about. For a very long time I never had a filter. I just say as they come to mind. And because my intentions are well founded, I always thought I would engage and see if we can come to some kind of understanding. And I said that the kind of IT environment we're trying to run, we cannot mandate physical registration of anybody. If you want to do that, let it not be as a requirement to practice. What do you even say practice ICT or practice IT? You know, if you want to say software, maybe, what is IT that you want to practice that you are enforcing people? Well, because I'm a lawyer and I also realize that this is still the law in our books, I want to say that look, nobody is, you won't drag me to court and I won't come with you to say we are not supposed to comply with the law. That's the law, we must comply. But we, as analysts, we have to look at the good, the bad and the ugly side of it. Now, if you're familiar with the Advanced Fraud Act that was amended in 2006, there's a section there, I think 23 or so, that also mandates cyber cafe registration, but this time with, who can guess, the EFCC. Now, a compliance person reading this would think, because any kind of registration might sound very simple in the law, but the process for a company, and a company that is being phased out by technology like a cyber cafe, you know, what you are basically telling them is to fold up. And maybe they should all fold up, really. Because you know, are we not all cyber cafes now? Yeah. All right. Okay. So we now have a direct relationship with our ISPs through our phones and through our
devices.
You know, why do you need a cyber cafe? So maybe it's all right. Also, is anybody digital encode? Is Wale or Shei here? No. Okay, those are the two hackers, but good hackers that I know in Nigeria, and I invited them. They promised. No, good hackers should be announced.
No.
Ethical hackers. No. They give me a card and they put, you know, they have websites with their information.
Put on your bill.
They say they are penetration testers. Okay, that's what they call themselves. They do penetration testing. All right. So cameraman, wipe the other one. Now you know that enforcement of cybercrime investigation seeks to accomplish what is called attribution. That's the only thing we want to accomplish when we do cybercrime investigation. Attribution. What is attribution? Attribution is matching or linking an act that is in the cyber with a physical individual. Okay? It doesn't happen at the beginning of the investigation. You have to, first of all, do your online investigation first. Discover that, oh, this act that is complained against is actually implicated by a law that I'm looking at. So it is offensive, it requires further investigation. Now, who did this act? Because it could be a program, it could be a code, it could even be sent from Kiev in Ukraine, and you are here running around in Nigeria. All right. Now, investigation, if this is a cybercrime act, if it's a cybercrime law, why are you talking about individual registry? Does it make any kind of sense? All right. That's one issue with compliance. But there are many issues because I'm a private attorney, and what I really do is compliance. My section on compliance is very lean because we have a compliance program we're doing for operators. So I don't want to compromise that value chain. This man is laughing. I think you're the first one to really understand what I'm saying. All right. Now there are possible constitutional issues. I know this one is going to be controversial, so let me choose my words very carefully. The National Security Agencies Act cannot be amended except through the same means and process for amendment of the Constitution. Section 315, 4 and 5 of the Constitution. All right. So is the Cybercrime Act heaping authority and mandate on the NSA? Is it an amendment of the Constitution? is it even arguable? Because lawyers don't wait for it to be serious. The potential of controversy will take this guy to court, or someone will pay him to go to court, on his behalf. Maybe because they also want this law thrown out, they will use that. So it is a risk. It's a risk. All right, and we're going to get into it and talk a lot more in detail. But that's the constitutional challenge. And there are other laws like that. Who can get other laws that cannot be amended except through the process of the Constitution? Sorry? The Land Use Act, there are two more.
Tell us.
The NYC Act cannot, and the Public Complaints Commission Act. All right.
Those not all coming here.
So, the other issue is the fund. Again, I have a story on this, which I've been advised not to tell. But the issue is that there was a vision for the fund. The vision was this, that every Nigerian should contribute to cybersecurity. Every Nigerian. At what point? At the point where a technology transaction occurs. And how much? 1 naira to 100 naira. Every Nigerian. The reason was that it's taken us so long to build a framework for cybersecurity and cybercrime. The amount of money that is going to need for us to leapfrog once this law is passed, it's going to be so monumental that there's not a single National Assembly in this world, really, maybe apart from the US, that would appropriate that kind of fund. There's none. So the vision was that let's look at what are the number of transactions that occur online in a month. In 2009, the answer was 8 billion. In 2009, 8 billion transactions. The number, just the number, everything online, even loading of your recharge card, everything. Now, the vision was that we should all feel, have you heard, most times the police or people in national security say that we should all feel responsible for security. Let's all, it is not only, security is too important to be left to government. So this was one way of practicalizing that. To say, even if 1 naira is too much, let's do 50 kobo. In fact, let's do 1 kobo. Let's get everybody involved so that we can take ownership of the cybersecurity process. That was the plan, that was the vision. I'm not going to say whose idea it was, but that was the vision. It used to give you direction. It's the only teacher that I take directions gladly. Another issue is technology specificity. A cardinal principle for technology law is that it must not be technology specific. Imagine if 10 years ago we drafted a cybercrime law and talked about ATM machines, or talked about POS system, or talk about cyber cafe, talk about VSAT, or talk about what is that thing we did at Meta that we carry internet all over the bus. Mobile internet. Okay, so I was assuming we included mobile internet. So that particular provision would have done and do what is called generic prescription. So they're saying they're looking at data, they're looking at content, they're looking at networks, they're looking at devices, they're looking at, you craft generic phrases to encompass every value without necessarily identifying those values. That's how it's done. With this law has abused that concept to imponderable extent. I don't know how. When we look at the legislative history, the reason for this, that is a lot of, the law is too heavy on the financial sector. Which reminded me of Chimamanda Adichie's story, TED Talk, which is talked about the danger of a single story. Now, so because all our challenges have been on people's ATM machines, all kinds of issues we have of being financial, so we now think, cybersecurity is about financial. And we just zoomed on it. We actually have the whole chapter dedicated to the financial sector. Basil said. Not Basil. All right. 2004-2005, I don't know how many people were familiar with the cybercrime working group, where I really started gaining weight. I used to be a slim guy. I worked so hard and caused so much stress. Well, I would sit 6-7 hours non-stop, started eating, being frustrated. Well, it came to nothing because the law did not pass. And I have a story for that too. Now, 2006, 2008, we come up with the computer security bill, which again did not pass. Between 2009 2010, I had left in frustration. I had resigned my position at the NSA in 2008, but I was called back 2010. So I got involved in the 2011 bill. 2010, my good friend Senator Ayo Richard called me and invited me to a workshop in Atlanta where a possible cyber crime bill was being considered. But when I looked at the caption of the law, it said Electronic Fraud Act. I started protesting immediately. That I hope the content doesn't reflect the caption, because this would not be the kind of cyber crime I was looking at. And they tried to convince me at the time that, oh no, efforts have been made to pass this bill, and it has not. So this one is going to be good. This one will pass. It's going to address the financial sector and so on and so forth. And I want to say here, very authoritatively, that some of the provisions you find now in our Cybercrime Act are surviving provisions from that electronic fraud bill that was proposed in 2009. Okay, are you leaving? How do we know you're not the one I said it to? No, it's not you. Thanks. All right, see you. All right, so I'm going to stand behind you again to continue. The former National Security Advisor General, Zazin, God bless his soul, empaneled a harmonization committee to look at all the laws, because at the time there were so many. I think we had like 11 of them. Manuel was involved in that. There were 13 various bills. You know, so the task was to harmonize and come up with one draft that would be presented to the National Assembly. Imagine, I hope I'm not blowing my horn or our respective horns when I say that was the best draft that should have been submitted to the country, and it was submitted to the Attorney General. But the Attorney General somehow suddenly developed other ideas. He started his own process as well. He paneled his own committee, brought the retired judge, the chair, and you know, I think none of us was even invited, apart from the people that worked in the AG's office. Two guys that were sent to represent the AG in our harmonization committee. And throughout the process, they called them, some of them called and protested to me that they don't like the direction that the bill is going. So this is one of the reasons. Next slide. Now, I had started off by saying that this is a legal review or a legal presentation, but it's also about technology. And there's really, I'm not aware of any operating system or any technology that has not yet been compromised. None whatsoever. None. And think about that, and also think about the fact that we're priding ourselves as a country that is going to leverage on technology to anchor our economic development. We're going to do this 2020. You know, so this law that we have must reflect that aspiration and must meet the technology requirement as well. Especially in terms of the investigative capability that the law is putting together and the ability to go to the market. Something happens, you quickly go to market and get it done. I hope I'm not. I did not do this. I got this online. God knows. So if it looks like Intel, they shouldn't come after me, because all technology has somehow hackers hiding somewhere. That's why when you fill forms, even on technology clients, they force you to say that you're a human being by giving you some numbers that are so almost blood so that you can key it. Otherwise, programs will come into your system and do all kinds of things. Next slide, please. Now, this is not very clear. Again, this is not my creation. The reason I put this together was It's called motivation taxonomy. Why do people commit cybercrime? Why do people do hacking? If you look, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only one is financial. Only one is financial. Unfortunately, you can't, but you get the paper, so you can also get it's financial. There are so many other bases and motivations. So why is our law concentrating so much on the financial? That was the question I wanted to ask him. And they look, when in each of the motivations, they have the reasons for it. Next slide. All right. Look at the dates. This law came into force, what? May 15th. Okay, you all asked me that question downstairs, and I said, yes, the president signed it May 15th. I know why you're anxious. We can sort your situation. I can help you. He's not a hacker. He's actually one of those people that has benefited from technology. So using, let me just summarize. His company is going to have to go and talk to the attorney general.
In more ways than one.
In more ways than one, yes. He agreed. Now, August 4th, once this guy was appointed, I even saw a Facebook account that evening. I almost clicked add, but I was like, I'm not even in the oil industry. I don't really need to. Maybe if he has a Twitter account and he's verified, I can, you know. So, oh, did I spell citizen engagement programs on Facebook? Because that's where the millennials are. But Facebook assists in some cases, doesn't assist in other cases. You know, I can tell you what other countries do, and now we have the basis of the Cybercrime Act. We issue an indictment, a federal indictment against Facebook. And when they are shared, then in Nigeria, then they will come and talk to me. Who am I going to go talk to? Is it the Attorney General? Is it the NSA? Is it the law, all the law enforcement agencies? Next slide. You know, this is what a typical cybercrime law should be: computer-related offenses, you have content-related offenses, computer integrity offenses, jurisdiction and personal issues, and so on and so forth. Look at the last part. You know, we shouldn't. And this is your act. And I said that I'm going to rush through it because, you know, we've covered some of the key issues already. On the phone, let me just say that. Yeah. Okay, so they just took that. Next one. Now, I'm very proud of these two communities, sector-specific and transactional and technology-specific comprehensive. Next slide. Next slide. I had highlighted some of the provisions I wanted to talk about, and I've already talked about most of them, so I'm not going to go into details, except the point that if you read the content of these three provisions, you're not going to see the difference. You know. All right, next slide. You know, you'll be embarrassed when you read section 19 and 20. And look at from 29 all the way down. Look at 31. Employee responsibility. This provision says that you should make sure that your employee, on leaving your employment, submits his access, devices, and passwords that you issue to them. It's a crime not to do so. Sandra Bola is saying yes. Anybody that leaves my office, before I even come and give you the talk, and some of them is very hard. By the way, Sheyi is one of the only staff that was working for me that left on his own. Sheyi works for Jumia now, so Sheyi, let some people see him. Alright, yes. Very sound lawyer, by the way. You know. So but before I even come and have the talk with you, I've already taken you off. I take you off all the connection before I say, can we speak? So how are you going to, what access? Well, I don't understand. This is not technology. Sorry? If I die?
No, if the person dies, how do you get the access?
Can we get
No,
to question now?
No,
Let's get to question.
no, it's a master. The access is mine. I do this at the back end.
Let's get to question.
Okay, all right.
I'll give you cases.
Okay. Maybe there are cases that this, but I don't see. How about section 30? Manipulation of ATM or POS terminal. How is that different from data forgery that is already in the Act? Manipulation of ATM terminal. Why are we even talking about ATM and POS terminals in a criminal law? Why? Alright, how about electronic cards? What is an electronic card doing in a criminal law, in a cybercrime law? Okay, so now when they're migrating to mobile, but mobile is the next paid platform, this guy should know. We're going to come back and amend this and put, so what's going to happen to section 30? The idea is to make this generic. That's the principle globally. Globally, the idea is to make this generic. Look at the action that you want to prosecute, want to prohibit, and identify that action. Nobody should do this in relation to a data. Nobody should do this in relation to a network. Nobody should do this in relation to an infrastructure. Once you say ATM, you know what you're doing? You've taken that data and isolated it into a sector, which you should not also do. It's financial. Alright? And then I don't like section 32. Phishing, spam, spreading on these are they're already provided for in the law. In generic form. So, dealing in card of another. Purchase or sale of card of another. I have no idea. Use of fraudulent device or attached emails and websites. The entire from 29 to 36, 19 to 20 can completely go and it will not affect the functionality of this law in one bit. Alright, next slide. Alright. I just want to mention the section 38 in relation to compliance. Because this law is going to be enforced by all law enforcement agencies. The section says that a law enforcement officer can enforce section 38 across all law enforcement agencies. So if you're MTN, Etisalat or whoever, you're sitting back, you're going to get so many people pinging you for information. And the cost of compliance is going to be so high, you're going to have a dedicated department to handle this. And not just that, data retention and data preservation requires so much monitoring from the law enforcement side that why do you throw it open? People would abuse it. People that want to hear who is calling their girlfriends, who that want to know what their husbands are doing. The police are just going to start having friends all about it. Okay, can you find out from Etisala who did this? And the idea is to create a professional entity that operates as a center of excellence on the subject matter. Maybe potentially that excellence can be spread, over time, but you cannot start enforcing cybercrime in this way. It is wrong. Not only is it wrong, it is totally unprecedented in Nigeria. We don't have a precedent of this nature, and I don't know why it's done this way. Next slide. Again, I emphasize 45, same thing. Any law enforcement agency, all. Alright, next slide. Now that's why I asked this question. Is there a conspiracy to ensure Nigeria doesn't enforce cybercrime? Well, I used to be very creative before, my brother. The guy that said possibly. Before I would agree with you immediately. But I also know that we don't take a lot of caution in Nigeria, and we're so quick to make comments without thinking. It's a feature of this country, and so many of us, even me inclusive, me also have been guilty sometimes. So I have to think. sometimes I bite my lip before, you know. So I don't think there's a conspiracy. I don't believe that. It's just a mistake. It's just a mistake. All right. Again, go back to the thinking. The people that drafted this law had no business. They should have left the law the way we did it in 2011. Not that I am perfect, but we had so many people. It was a representative committee of so many people. We were more than 30 from all agencies and private sector involved, professional organization, NCS was represented, even CPN was, everybody was represented. All right. Now we have a decentralized and distributed enforcement framework where the NSA will coordinate the enforcement of all law enforcement and security agencies. Yeah. So for the first time in Nigeria, we've separated investigation, prosecution, and enforcement of a crime across entities. I said that it is our traditional approach is different. We usually have what they call conferred authority. So we create this agency called conferred authority and directors to enforce a list of crimes. That's what we do. That's what
Yeah,
that's
that
what we do.
That was almost in the original.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Arrest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. In the 2011 draft. It's this curious departure from the norm is really curious. But I know that it's not going to work. Threat of coercive compliance. If operators don't know how to articulate that, we should get together and I will give you the arsenal, because we have to talk about this. We have to have a cybercrime law that we can work with. You know, otherwise we're playing with technology. We cannot toy. This is the only sector in this country that is doing well. Oil is dwindling. Everything else is not going so well for us except this, and we cannot play with this. We're already taking the Nigerian approach of let's see how it goes. We're being spiritual about this. It's not a spiritual subject, you know. And we're also lucky in the sense that for this one, we don't have to be inventive. We don't even have to be creative. There are models all over the world. We just capture the models and make sure that even if all we do is change the names, we will still go far without, you know, ridiculing the outcome of a process that started very well and so much resources have been expended. All right, next slide. Now, I had mentioned this and I said it was a bit sensitive because I used to work in that office. So I'm only just posing a question. And my question is this. If you have a provision of the Constitution that says a law cannot be amended except it goes through the provision of the Constitution, is that provision violated if another law so dramatically changes the content of that law without really amending it that someone outside looking in can see it as constituting constructive amendment? That's just a question. And the reason I ask that question is because someone is likely to have on that to challenge the constitutionality of the law. If I was given the chance, I would say, let's avoid that risk. That's what I would have said.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so at least I'm being validated here so that if people come after me, I can say, I'm only stating the position of the law. Yeah, go to the next slide. I'm sorry we cannot, even though we have a part. I said, this, my computer will not work. We've done everything. We've done. I just look at what I make here is that I got a friend of mine who is good with numbers. They say if we make 1 trillion in technology transaction in this industry, not all of in this, how much will we get in the fund in a year? It's about 600 million. You see what they drop? What would it do? What would 600 million for cyber security and cybercrime? Absolutely nothing. Next slide. So we're still going to have that 600 million. We're going to put the process, the auditing, and we're going to do all the programming to make sure we levy, and then we're not going to have enough money to even do the work that we wanted to do with it, and we'll end up still going to National Assembly for 100 people. All right, so here's my conclusion. So this law is good. It's very comprehensive. Thank God the 2011 version was left intact, even though it took out the enforcement angle of it. If the AG, my conclusion is that the Attorney General, since he has authority to enact regulation, should come up with a regulation that excises some of those provisions I highlighted and more away from the Act. And the mechanism in law is to say, I will not prosecute this section. I don't know if it's the same thing as knowledge prosecute or knowledge prosecute. Okay, it's not. Okay. Now he would say that for the purpose of this section, this office will not prosecute. And since it's the only one that prosecutes, that those provisions will become ineffective.
Correct.
And at the same time, he will work on proposing amendment to the Act, to the National Assembly. Both of these procedures working simultaneously would lead us to the El Dorado that we raised here, amongst other things. Next slide. And my information is here for those that do not have, and please, let's keep the conversation going.
Ladies and gentlemen, another fantastic round of applause for time is very fast spent moderating this session, and